you've had zombie dreams, right?
Okay, well, before I answer, what defines zombie dream?
I mean, anything that in a dream that just flat out involves zombies, maybe even a zombie apocalypse.
I don't think I read a zombie apocalypse dream, but I do a vague. Well, you know what? Actually, I kind of vaguely remember some. Yeah, my dreams usually aren't on an epic scale. If epic shit is going on, it's very much from like my perspective, usually, or like a limited third person perspective.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
how
think.
anybody else dreams. That's just, at least from what I can remember, more supernatural in nature than most
Okay.
zombies. I remember what I remember of it's pretty vague, but most vivid one I've had is I remember there was somebody like shuffling towards me. I remember pushing like my head or their hand against their head, like their forehead. You know, I was like zombies kind of shuffle down with their head down,
Right.
and I was like trying to push them back, but they were like just inconceivably strong. And like I don't remember what they said, but I remember it was a woman and she was like speaking to me, and I remember being like, "What the fuck?" And just was I remember trying to get out of there, and it just was really dark and dreary, and I don't really know if I got out of there. I never die in my dreams, or if I am dying, like right before I do, I wake up, so I don't recall
Right.
dying or anything.
Right. And that's honestly fairly common for most people in their dreams. They don't actually die. They wake up like right before they would die or something. Oh, excuse me. Holy cow.
You're
Um,
not excused. How dare you?
right. Interrupting the audio quality. So hard to cut around that. I don't even remember what I was gonna say, so I'm not gonna try and make a new take on that. Fuck that. One take, baby. Um. Anyways, the I mean, I've had grand scale of dreams in the way I think of that, and some of them I've created some of my narratives that I've talked with you about, like the stories you see me editing on my personal Discord. That stuff, some of it started as dreams, and I took the basic concept of the dream and continued upon it. And there have been
Hmm.
some dreams that I've enjoyed to the point where I started waking up and I was like, no, I don't want the dream to end. And so I'd force myself to sleep and try and keep having the dream. But in some cases, I couldn't fully fall back to sleep. So I would basically allow my imagination to continue from where the dream left off and basically just keep going with how I wanted the dream to go. But
Mm.
there's
Okay.
been a handful of cases over this past year where I've had a dream that has kind of unsettled me. The first one I
Oh,
had this
recurring dream.
demon. No, different each time.
Oh, I misinterpreted. Carry on.
Yeah, one of them was really graphic, had to do with some sort of internet challenge. I may have told you about this before. I'm gonna
That sounds familiar.
try. Yeah, I'm gonna try not to go into too much detail because it's a very graphic image to put in people's heads.
That's
It
kind
dealt,
of yeah. That's when you
yeah,
asked me. I was kind of like didn't want to get into too much detail because some of my
yeah.
dreams
It
get
it
pretty
affected my
detailed.
mental state for a whole 24 hours.
I've had
Like
that happen.
it dealt with hurting animals and an internet challenge, and I was not okay with the fact that that is a viable possibility in the world we live in today. So that's all I'll
Hmm.
say about that one.
I don't
A
know if I've
different
had
one I
dreams
had,
about hurting animals.
I I don't think I tried to interpret that one. I think I had that dream and it affected my mental state so bad for that entire day that I didn't want to think about it at all. I distanced myself from it as much as possible, so I did nothing to actually interpret what the dream would actually mean within my life.
Hmm. You probably
Now,
saw something disturbing and then in the somewhat recent past,
I
and
mean,
that was your
honestly,
mind's interpretation of trying to handle it.
I mean, considering what it was though, I don't know of anything that's affected me so viscerally. I mean,
I've had dreams that really play up things before. Like I remember this I was talking to this one girl and doing all that sort of stuff, and I just remember one time like she was upset and like before like we got off for the night or whatever, and like I had a dream that she like got in a terrible car accident and shit, and it was like nothing close to what the reality was at all. So sometimes dreams
Right.
are just, in my experience, they're just weird like that.
Well, they easily can be. Have you heard the theory that you astral travel when you're sleeping?
Uh, yes.
For anybody who's not familiar with the subject, and to give you a brief reminder of how the idea goes, the concept is that, we live on the third dimension where everything's physical, and if we want something, it takes time for us to get it. Like, for example, just a bottle of water. If you want a bottle of water, you got to go up to your fridge and grab that bottle of water. But in higher planes of existence, like the astral realm, or what we could call the fourth dimension, you could think of something and it'll manifest right in front of you. And so the idea is that we are subconsciously leaving our bodies. Our spirit is going into a fourth dimension, and our subconscious is what's manifesting everything around us in that astral plane. And our subconscious can think of some really weird shit, and it just appears. So that's what we're experiencing according to this idea. So it is just a basic idea. It's one that's put out there by different people, but I relate it into the sense that the two other dreams that I had besides this most recent one, which I had this dream just last night, the one that I'm about to, or the one that I brought you here for.
Dream.
Yeah, the zombie dream. The other one I had, I was like having a conversation with my mom, and there were these dark figures. I think I talked to you about this one too. They had like these red eyes and whatnot, or I talked to somebody else about it. And they were just kind of pacing back and forth. They were just kind of watching me. My mom and I were talking about something, and I was like, Mom, what the hell are those things? And they immediately got like really defensive. They turned towards me, kind of like squared up, and came rushing at me like
the vampire movie and all.
No, it didn't have a mouth. That was something else. It was
that's
like,
not okay.
it was completely black. It looked like it had a weird type of armor to it, like it had a collar behind its head, but it didn't fully arc in the same way behind its head next to its shoulders, if you catch my drift.
Like, could have been like a loop for a chain?
No. You know how t-shirts and stuff will have those collars that you or especially button-up shirts, collars that you can put up?
Oh, the ones
you know
can
what?
flip up?
I'm going to relate it to Dragon Ball, actually. You know the Saiyan armor?
Silence. Let me look up an image for a clear mental reference.
Look up Dragon Ball Super Broly for the armor. It was that kind of armor, except the collar, like at the back of his neck, went up, like to the height of his head, and then the rest of it was.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I just never thought of it in those terms. Okay.
Right.
Oh, so, typical fantasy. Okay, yeah. I've seen stuff like that before.
It was pitch black, armored up. It had like a sunken in, almost skull-like face, but with like muscles on it, and no mouth, but glowing red eyes. And at first it was just pacing back and forth and watching me. But when I tried to ask my mom, hey, do you see those things too? It faced me, its full body turned towards me, and it like squared up and came rushing at me. And it was like, we told you not to acknowledge us, and reached out to me like it was about to like grab me real aggressively, but before it could touch me, I like fell away, like slid away to a different part of my dream. That one...
Oh, I've had that before.
That one was wild. That felt weird, dude. But this dream I had last night was a zombie dream. It's not the first zombie dream I've had. I've had zombie dreams where I had some really close calls but still made it out. I had zombie dreams where I was just out killing zombies. I've had maybe 3 zombie dreams aside from this one that I could remember in my life, and I won't go into detail on those ones here. But like, and who knows, this probably isn't even going to become a series where we sit down and talk about dreams, but I'd be curious to do it every once in a while, because sometimes it's nice to talk about a dream. Anyways,
I could see doing a segment of it, especially if I start doing
on occasion.
If I did dream journaling. But a lot of my most notable dreams are, I mean, it's just talking, so it's not going to get us banned or anything, but very graphic, not in a good way, obviously. I didn't enjoy them, but those ones that stick out to me generally involve death and so on. So,
Right. And those are kind of similar in my perspective as well, because some of those dreams kind of unsettle you. The two that I mentioned were pretty unsettling to me. The first one more than that second one with this demonic entity, but the more recent one I had in my dream, like when I woke up, it was stuck with me for a moment, but only a couple of seconds, and then I realized it was just a dream. But it had a visceral emotion attached to it. Like, it legitimately made me feel for my life in this dream.
Yeah,
All right?
I've been there actually a few times where like I woke up and I was like, it was so visceral, as you put it, so real in the dream.
Yeah.
That I didn't feel like. Sometimes when you wake up, it feels like there's a veil or something, if you will, that isn't quite sealed yet or something. It's kind of a hard concept to explain, but.
That's also part of that astral travel theory. Part of the reason why I subscribe to it is part of the reason why I want to subscribe to it. All right, I want to believe that that's part of what's true, is because we can mistake dreams while we're sleeping as being 100% real. I've done it on a couple occasions, and it legitimately felt like I was having an out-of-body experience, because there was one time in particular I woke up, got out of bed, went upstairs, checked on everybody in the house. They were still sleeping. Went outside and got transported back to my body through a fucking window.
I've never. I don't think I've ever had an experience quite like that. I have had a few. I've had some dreams where I woke up and I felt like I did wake up, and then I woke up later. And then I felt like they're real. Some dreams I did that and I realized they weren't real. And then I've had dreams where like I predicted something that happened.
That's another part of the spiritual aspect, in my opinion. There's a piece of clairvoyance to that. Now, I think with the proper training and dedication and meditation, you can learn to control it in astral travel whenever you want. But I have not done all of that. I have done meditations and I have practiced trying to do it, but I was never dedicated enough to do it consistently, which is why I think I have those brief moments, but I can't just do it on will.
Every time I tried to do meditation, I followed the wrong advice saying, clear your mind, think of nothing. And when you actually look into it, people who are actually doing it are like, well, that's impossible.
Right. Well, I think I've said this, we've had this conversation before, I think, where like, you don't think of nothing, but you focus on something really specific. Like, focus on your breathing. Focus on the feeling of your hand. Focus on the air around you. How does it feel against your body?
Stay in the
moment.
moment.
Listen to water.
That's what
or
you're
something.
supposed to be doing, yeah.
Yeah, be in the moment. Don't be in last week.
Don't
be in what are you doing tomorrow. Be in the now.
A lot of the faux spiritual, all I have is a yoga mat, and that's my God type people really misinterpret what all this stuff is supposed to be, and that's one of them. Because I know for a while it was starting to be like spread around that you should meditate as part of like a few mental health issues, whatever. You know, meditate, ground yourself every so often, and people would start to, in the beginning, like criticize it, saying like, "Oh, you're a quack," blah 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 blah, because those people have been like chatting shit this entire time.
Yeah, there's definitely different ways that people have tried to do it, and different people explain it different ways, and some people are on the mark, some people have a different way of doing it because everybody's different, and some people are just hacks. Sad to say, but you know, they exist.
Shysters, that's what they are.
Yeah. So that visceral feeling, the lingering sensations you have from a dream that intense, when you wake up with that, right?
Yeah.
That dream kind of had this. And, you know, like I said, I've had zombie dreams before. None of them were actually like this. I'm sure you've played, you know, Left 4 Dead, maybe Dying Light.
Yeah, the zombie dream I had reminded me a lot of Left 4 Dead, but if it was like more realistic, if that makes sense.
This one reminded me of a cross of like Dying Light, maybe Left 4 Dead, definitely Days Gone, and maybe a little bit of Dead Rising. There were no bees, I don't think these things were alive, so they were zombies, or maybe hellspawn. Honestly, I'll
The
explain why I say
zombie
that
I
in a
had
minute.
in my dream was questionably if they were dead or alive, or maybe undead in the
Yeah,
different sense of just like a lot of zombies in popular fiction are just like fungus controlled corpses, whatever. I mean, like in a very supernatural sense.
yeah, these things were definitely dead. All right, these things were not alive in the human sense of the term. And honestly, if you've seen Keanu Reeves in the movie Constantine, the
Yes.
demons that he sees in hell when he goes there, they kind of had that skin tone, except it was, you
Huh.
know,
I
almost
kind of
skin
figured they would
tight.
actually. It's weird.
Yeah, they were. It was almost skin tight. It kind of had like spotchy holes. It had like different points of connection, so it almost looked like it was stitched together. Honestly,
Hmm.
and it was wild to see. But I started with some random guy. It probably wasn't somebody random. For the life of me, I don't know who it actually looked like within my dream. All I know, I was with somebody else. All right,
Mm-hmm.
and we were just talking. We were standing underneath like a porch pavilion, something. Uh, it was a somewhat overcast day, probably late in the afternoon, probably like 5, 6 o'clock. And out of nowhere, we got jumped from behind and around us. There was a bunch of them, not multiple dozens. I'm sorry, probably not a multitude, but a couple dozen. Maybe a grand total of 20 that I can remember around us at the time.
That's
And a
still
lot of them
a
were
lot.
distracted by other stuff. It was still a lot. I think we dealt with 5 in that immediate vicinity. All right. Now, we dealt with the ones around us. However, we each got like scratches and bites and stuff, bumps and
Uh-oh.
bruises as well. I was bitten on like my lower back. All right.
Oh no, so you can't even
But
like amputate it.
right, I couldn't even amputate that. Here's the thing though. I got the impression these things didn't transmit whatever they were through a bite. Whatever died would come back as one of them, but they would not transfer a virus to you that killed you. They would just kill you, you know? They're
Uh,
out to tear out your throat, to rip out your heart, to pull you to pieces. They're not there to spread a virus. So that's what makes me think they were more hellspawn than zombie, actually, now that I'm looking back at it.
they're little
Because,
buggers, aren't they?
huh?
Friendly little buggers, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, the friendliest. They'll give you love bites right off the gate. Like, I think that was one of the first ones that got me, too. He tried to, like, tackle me from behind and bit my lower back.
I think I've
And the
ghosted a
other
few
dude,
girls for trying to do that shit.
yeah,
Carry on.
it the other guy I was with, kind of got him off of me. And when other ones were coming at me too, it was like I could punch them full fucking tilt, all right? And their body would move with the hit, like their jaw would move, their face would go to the side, but they would keep running at me. I was running backwards and punching them with both fists back and forth, trying to get them to drop, to stop, slow down, anything. Did not matter. That motherfucker got me pinned. I kept him off of me. I kept his mouth off of me and kept trying to punch him in the face, keep him away. And my other buddy even got like a knife or whatever and tried to stab him in the head. It didn't work. Eventually, we got away from the thing and got a couple pistols. And I took a fucking gun and shot it through its nose straight into its head, and that's what killed it. Blowing a large chunk of its head right out of its body is what killed it. And it seemed to be the only thing that would kill any of them. They were relentless and they were all over the place. We went maybe a couple blocks down the road where the sun is starting to set at this point. So, like I said earlier, it was late in the afternoon already. And so the sun's starting to set. And we did see the things hide under the pavilion. We didn't, that's what it was. We didn't go into a building to get the guns. I think we probably already had them. It's a dream, right? Shit just kind of appeared.
Things just materialize into your inventory.
Right. And so that was just something that materialized in my inventory, but we still had a lack of ammo. we had like maybe enough ammo for 2 clips, but that's 14 bullets when we were already dealing with a possible 20
Oh, I
for
was
the
just about to
zombie.
say like 8 rounds, and I was like, nah, you wouldn't know. Okay, so 7 rounds. What he's like 45s?
Probably. I
Okay,
wouldn't
that's a
know for
decent
sure.
size.
They did look like almost like the style of a 9 millimeter, but they were definitely stronger, more heavy duty.
Most likely 45 then.
Yeah, more than likely. And so it did start to rain. The guns appeared in our inventory, as you put it. It started to rain,
I
and
don't know what
all of
to
those
call it.
creatures. I like calling it that. It's kind of amusing, honestly. But in video game terms, for the dream, it just appeared in my inventory. uh, God just manifested it. There it be.
That's how it
He said,
works,
"Let you
man.
have gun."
Dude, when you're in a dream, you're just like, man, out like a whoop. Oh, there it is in my hand. How
Right.
serendipitous.
I could really use some chocolate. Hey.
Chalky milk.
Right. So it started to
Diarrhea
rain.
in 3 hours.
I shot one of them in the face, got out from under the pavilion, and it started raining. And all of the creatures immediately huddled up underneath the pavilion or under anything that would cover them from the rain. They were terrified of it. And when they did try and run through, they like were burning up, sizzling and shit, and ran back. All right. So the rain deterred them. Great. We booked it. We maybe made it a couple blocks down the road. Rain started to let up, and we went into a building.
Seems kind of like they might be spiritual beings of some sort, because I've heard of that in like some mythologies and whatnot, where like the running water, rain burns, or hurts
Right.
certain
So
spirits.
I think the rain and the sun had effects on them because it didn't seem like there was as many when the sun was up, but it was cloudy at first. And then when the sun was clearer, like you could see it a lot better, it wasn't as overcast. The sun's rays were actually beating on the city. All right, it was a luminescent yellow orange, and the streets were fairly clear. It had just finished raining, but the streets were clear. And so we went into a building, like it's getting to be dark. We're going to need somewhere to hole up for the night. Let's try and go into this all brick building that looks pretty fucking sturdy. We'll go in here, barricade up, hole up for the night, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the two of us went in, and there was already of a bunch of them in that building. Now, it wasn't like we walked in and were cornered. We walked in, went a little bit down the hallways. It was already dark in there. And in a different set of double doors, we saw their shadows moving around, and we just knew it was one of those things. And there was a few of them in there.
No me goose.
And we were like, we're not going to deal with that. Let's quickly go try and find another place. The sun hasn't completely set yet. And we went out there, and apparently the sun had set just enough. It wasn't really yellow anymore. It was more orange, but it was still very iridescent, very beautiful.
I like that one scene in I Am Legend.
Kind of, yeah. Maybe not to the same extent. But I propped that door open, and there was immediately a couple on me, and we were doing everything we could not to use the guns anymore so the sound didn't attract the ones in the building and any others around us in the city. I mean, we were lucky with the rain before, but it's not raining anymore. And so I was trying to get the fucking thing off of me, and we ended up having no choice but to use the gun. And as soon as we did, we heard like dying light, volatile screeches and roars all around us, even from inside the building.
Oh, thank you.
Right. We immediately got the ones that were right there around us, killed, and turned to leave. We walked past that building. We're at a crossroads, all right? We just walked past it. We see a fucking tidal wave of those things headed toward us. We go to the left. There's a fucking tidal wave of those things headed for us. We turn around and go back to the right. Another tidal wave heading for us. Look behind us. Another fucking tidal wave. It was like the eye of the storm of a hurricane, but it was closing in on you. And it was legitimately tidal wave size. This thing was at least 3 stories tall. Just those creatures piling on top of each other, swarming towards us. And it was just this sinking sensation of, I'm going to die.
Jesus fucking
Like,
fuck.
there's
Man, I
no
wish you could
getting
see my
out of
face
it.
right now. That would have been a lot more expressive than me not saying it. Like, God damn.
Yeah, it was just no escape. There's nothing you can do. You don't have enough ammo for creatures that are piled up to that height. These things only go down from a bullet to the face. Like, what are you
And
gonna do?
you're not a Marine with expert marksmanship or anything.
You barely have two clips. Like, if you're lucky. I think we honestly only had one clip and like a few extra rounds in our pockets, but that's
Oh,
about it.
it takes forever to load a magazine.
Right.
At least if it's somewhat new. Jesus Christ.
So I mean, we were just fucked. And I woke
Yeah.
up like right before they got to us, and it took me a moment to register that's not what's happening. That wasn't real. That was just a dream. I'm in bed. I'm good. Like, but it was like, holy shit, dude, that was quite the experience.
That is pretty fucking terrifying. One dream I had where I couldn't like one that isn't like terribly awful. I mean it wasn't great, but it like there's no blood and gore or anything. But one dream I had when I was a kid, I was like sleeping in my bed, and I remember like trying to reach for like the nightlight to turn it on, like I had like a little lamp on my not nightlight, a little lamp on my dresser. It's a long time ago now. Trying to turn on to where I could see, like I could feel like this crushing like presence in the room. And I remember like trying to scream for help, and like when I would like open my mouth, it was like the my lungs would collapse, and like the breath would be like taken out of my lungs. And then like I remember like freaking the fuck out, waking up, and then like blinking and passing the fuck out again. And like it fast forwarded in like an alternate reality of that dream to where I got the fuck out of there instead of trying to reach for the light. And like behind me, like I could feel like the darkness grabbing me and trying to like drag me back. And I remember trying to scream for help and reach out, and like it just kind of like faded to black. And then I woke up again, like.
Right. Dude. It's pretty crazy how your subconscious can really mess with your physical experience of things.
I remember very physically feeling like my lungs being like collapsed, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, there's very few things that have made me feel utterly hopeless. And honestly, even though in that dream I did experience like a hopelessness, it was melancholic and almost in a weird sense uplifting, if that makes any sense. In the context being that when I realized that we were utterly screwed, when I realized that there was no way out of that and there was no hope of surviving it, I stood there and accepted the fact that this is how I'm gonna die. This is where it ends.
It's how a lot of people seem to. I took a class in college about dying. Actually, it's called Death and Dying. The class they still offer it at that
Wow.
college. Yeah, and
That's pretty interesting.
it's all about death. Not like rotting or decomposition, but like dying and then dead. Uh, and it talked about a lot of people just like right up at the end they just oh, I guess I'm gonna die, and then it just suddenly just they're like that's how it is, and then no grief, no bargaining, no upset, just okay.
Yeah.
It's a
I mean,
very intriguing response.
it's not like we can change it. At a certain point, you just have to accept it because it's part of life. It's what gives life its definition.
Well, it's like anything that people always want to eliminate the bad, quote unquote bad, all the time. Despite if there is no bad, then there is no good because just is well, and is nothing.
Right. Well, there was a way of describing death that I thought was really interesting recently. I wanted to bring up the quote, those who run from death stood still in life. And that doesn't have anything to do with the description of death. I just liked that quote and thought of it when we were bringing this up a minute ago. But the description that I'm gonna try and help and have you visualize, all right, is
Oh no, not me.
No, 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 no. It's nothing. If you were to be in a room, and I'm gonna send you this actually, oh, I did send you the story, the time travel story.
Mm.
They kind of describe it, but they don't say the exact words that I'm going to say this in. All right. They're looking out into a void, right? It's not black, but it doesn't have any light. And they described it as what a blind man would see, the color of something you would see during your sleep in between dreams. And I take it a step further and think about it. They also said it's the color of death, but it's interesting to think about because it's void-esque and it's
I've
hard to
experienced this
describe
void.
that.
I've
Yeah,
experienced that feeling.
it can be hard to describe that.
I've,
But if
I've
you think
experienced
about
it.
it, if you think about it, the best way that I can think of to describe it, that overwhelming sense of nothing, the encompassing
Yeah,
of void with no color and no light,
I
no
experienced this.
darkness.
When I had
It's
my surgery. The first time I sat up, it hurt so much that my entire being just left, and there was no anything, no light, no, it wasn't black, it wasn't light, there was just nothing. I didn't feel anything, I didn't hear anything, I didn't see anything, I didn't smell anything. Literally, absolutely nothing for a few seconds, maybe. I'm not sure how long, but it was just absolutely nothing.
right. And honestly, I don't know how many other people can relate to this because I haven't tried to talk to people about this. It's not something you think about all the time, and most of the time people have more pressing concerns. But try and
Save
think
us.
back,
Yes.
but before all of that, before school, before your home life, before your childhood, think back to maybe even if you remember being a baby. Think back before that. What did you see and experience before you were born? What do you remember from the time before you could remember anything? That color, that image, that view, that overwhelming sense of nothingness is something you're at peace with because you're not feeling, you're not experiencing, you are encompassed in the void. And it's wild to think about it like that. Excuse me while I put on my tinfoil hat for this segment, but like, I can remember very few things from being an infant, but I remember being carried up into my house in a car seat. I remember riding on the front of my dad's Harley, and then I remember a nightmare that I had, and then wearing my Clifford boots. All right. I was maybe 3 years old, maybe 4 years old when that Clifford boots memory happened. And I surprised the hell out of my mom when I told her I remembered that.
I remember a couple things when I was like 3 and maybe a bit earlier than that, but most of my memories from back then are gone or whatever.
Right. Now, if you think about the gaps between the memories you have at that young age, it's still sort of in that same color in my head. It's basically like static, but it doesn't have white to it. It doesn't have black to it. In fact, when I see it, if I were to try and put a color to it, I would say maybe it has a black and a brownish sort of movement, but it's not that simple, you know?
Neutral colors that your brain would have to catalog. Your brain memories degrade if you don't maintain them.
Right.
So like I don't know if you ever heard the Mind Palace thing, like in the newest edition of Sherlock Holmes TV show. They talk about it. What they're doing is they're maintaining their memories. But if you don't, your brain it's a lot like a computer file. It just fades away. Bits of code, if you will, just fade and flit away, and eventually nothing's left.
See, I've heard people talk about the Mind Palace, but I've never had a discussion about it, nor have I had it defined.
I've never done it, although it sounds interesting and it seems to be something that at least people believe in. But the concept is that you go to this place in your mind that you maintain yourself, and it's a visual mental representation. It could be a palace, it could be a library, whatever. But you go to certain areas in it and you store data. and you go over this and maintain this place, and you go over it over and over and over again in your mind, to where it's like a house, your house. Like, you know, to walk in, you can walk in your house and you can go anywhere, and you know where everything is, sort of thing. So in like Sherlock Holmes, for example, they would go into their mind palaces, and they'd go into a library, and they'll search for the title of a book. Perhaps it's actually a book they read, perhaps it's not, but sometimes it would be like a self-titled or a self-made work, that would compile information. So perhaps they memories in there, or just random bits of info that isn't actually a book itself, but they made a visual representation of it to save the memory, and because they maintain it so much, they don't lose it.
That's pretty interesting. You know, part of me feels like that could be a really interesting focus for a meditation session. 'Cause I feel like you would be meditating to
I bet that
manifest.
is. I know Sherlock. I'm pretty sure Sherlock Holmes in the show does meditate to do it. There's like this villain guy who's super super smart. I don't really recall him meditating. He was kind of weird though. He was like so smart that he could never fit in society.
Was it
Or, sorry, he's
Moriarty?
intellect. No, it was a guy after me. He was like a foreign guy.
Huh.
Yeah, no, he has his own things, Moriarty, but no, this guy is just like just straight up, pretty much just straight up evil, but like in a very real sense, where he just cared about himself. He wasn't trying to destroy the world. He wasn't crazy, but he had so much intellect and like not very much, I guess, empathy or wisdom, if you will, that
Right.
there's just no way he could have participated in the world, in society. He would have been incapable of it. He had the worst combination.
Huh.
But he was so smart that he would just like go into this. Well, a big part of one of the stories, spoilers alerts for anybody who cares, is he had this like vault of all this information, and they tried so hard to get into it, and finally they made a bunch of sacrifices and shit. And he reveals it to Sherlock. It's just like a room, just a room behind a big vault door, like a closet maybe even. And he'd be like, where's the information? Where's the vault? And he just taps on his head, and then they do a flashback or flash forward or something to him, like physically moving his hands while sitting on a chair in that room, and like actually grabbing books and like looking through them. And of course, in his mind, he was, and then he physically was like moving his hands like he was. But I think Sherlock Holmes meditates while doing it. So I don't know if there's different methods. I don't know.
Well, it definitely sounds like a decent meditation
For
tactic, and it feels like something that would be manifested during meditation, especially if it's like a castle, a palace, a library, or even a vault. You have to take the time to intricately think about or visualize how the place looks, what the books that you're looking at say, what they contain.
Yeah, the
So-
way I would think is that you got to walk the grounds. The way I would imagine is like you walk this house, this castle, whatever the fuck. You know, it doesn't really matter. Whatever works for you, you do it over and over and over and over again. And this is the way I would imagine it would work. I don't know. And then you determine this is a bathroom, this is the sink, or sink. This is a kitchen. This is living room. This is bedroom number 1 through whatever. This is the library. Blah blah blah. And say, okay, well, I go to the wine cellar, and behind this is here's this. The definitive collection of Shakespeare. Well, I want to learn Shakespeare, so I'm going to label it here, and then I'm going to learn Shakespeare, or I'm going to read Shakespeare, and every time I read a book, I'm going to go here, pick up the book, and remember, like, put down what I remember from the story, and then you do that over, and then you reread it, and then it's there.
Right. Okay.
This is
That's
some
pretty
type A
interesting.
shit. Imagine if you, man, that actually, I should look into that. Like, if I could just remember shit like that all the time, like, I mean, think about all the books you could read and put down, and then just put, all right, I gotta look through the dictionary real quick.
Dude, that would save me so much time. Fuck.
Well, and it just imagine how, like, on a fucking little bit of a selfish angle here, imagine how impressive that would be if you just remember everything all the time. Like, you'd always look, like, in business meetings, you'd always look good. Whenever you're meeting a client, whatever, you'd be like, this guy's on it. You know what I mean?
Right. See, I got decent retention skills, but that retention, everything that I heard, is going to be retained for maybe an hour before gaps start to form.
Exactly. And I'm saying like you would remember like things from like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 10 years
Right.
ago. At that point, you'd presumably only from that point forward, unless you were able to put things past there too. Damn. Now that I say it out loud, I really should do that because like there's some skills I could, like I get like every time I take a math class, which I probably won't ever again, but every time I do, I start to get a glimmer of hope, but then the math class ends. But like I learned how to do like advanced algebra and stuff, and I like wrote it down and all that. Like that'd be powerful for later.
Right, okay.
That's really good for learning. That's good for everything. Actually.
Yeah, it sounds like a really good concept. I like that idea.
That's good just for everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that's bad for, except for maybe it might take some time, but who cares? The reward well way outweighs that.
Right, no kidding.
People are like, you look weird. Well, I remember your address, your social security number, blah, 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 and everything about you. Oh, God.
Right. I have the power to ruin your identity. Do you really want to insult me?
I mean, really, when you're cultivating that kind of intellect, yeah.
Moriarty levels, scary levels of fucking Sherlock, beyond levels of memory retention skills.
That is beyond memory retention, honestly. That's a new level, yeah. But anyway,
I feel like you had a point when you were bringing this up, and I don't remember what you were saying before.
we were talking about dreams, and then we were talking about memories, and I think I was explaining some. I think you were talking about meditation or something.
I mean, I brought up that this would be a really good mantra for meditation.
Yeah.
Honestly, to be completely transparent, I think I originally brought up meditation in a bit we were going to cut from the audio, so...
Possible. It's possible. There you go, audio listeners and other listeners.
Yep, there we go. Now, yeah, you get to see a little bit of behind the scenes. We recorded for, well, on my screen it says almost an hour and a half. I know it's been a little
Same.
less than that, but like...
Not by much, but a little less,
Right.
but not by much.
Probably an hour at this point.
Hour and 17, well, about an hour and 18 for me. That's what
Right.
I've been
I
recording thus far.
figure this could be chopped down to a 30-minute video at most.
Yeah, it's probably get chopped up a lot. We'll have to take a few schwacks at this, like I said before.
Right. So, regardless, I thank you for your time, Asa. I'm gonna have to head to bed because it's late.
No
I'm gonna
problem.
trying to get a couple hours of sleep, you know, or something before I have to get up this.